Hello and welcome to Unacademy. 106th Constitutional Amendment Act was passed by the Parliament in 2023, which mandated women's reservation. 33% seats in Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies would be reserved for women. But there was a condition. First, delimitation has to take place. But for delimitation to take place, we need updated census. Census would be conducted in 2027. The last time delimitation was carried out in the year 2002, it took 6 years for the Delimitation Commission to publish its award, which means if delimitation is conducted after the census of 2027, it's going to take time, so women's reservation can be implemented only by 2034 Lok Sabha elections, not earlier. Now, what the government has decided, they are planning a bill in the upcoming session of the Parliament to amend this law. Which means what? Which means delimitation will be carried out now, but on the basis of the census of 2011, not on the basis of 2027 census. Which means, long story short, the government wants a bill to be passed in the Parliament so that we can complete delimitation based on 2011 census, implement Women's Reservation Act just in time for 2029 Lok Sabha elections. But this Women's Reservation Act, it has a sunset clause, which means this women's reservation would be valid only for 15 years. But be that as it may, on the other hand, the Supreme Court is hearing important cases. A 9-judge bench of the Supreme Court is reviewing whether the Sabarimala verdict is correct or incorrect. Because a 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court few years ago decided that women of all age groups may pray at the Sabarimala temple, because there was a restriction that women of menstruating age in the age group of 10 to 50, they are not allowed entry inside the sacred sanctum sanctorum of the Sabarimala temple. Now, to review this verdict, we have a 9-judge bench of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is also reviewing whether the horrible practice of female genital mutilation practiced by the Dawoodi Bohra community, whether that is valid or not. The court is also hearing whether marital rape can be criminalized. So important matters related to gender justice, related to gender equality is being heard by the Supreme Court. But where is women's reservation in the judiciary? Why is the representation of women abysmal in Indian judiciary? That's the key question that we shall be addressing in this video. But you might ask, how is this topic relevant for your examination? Look at the question on your screen, which was asked in 2021 mains. Discuss the desirability of greater representation to women in higher judiciary to ensure diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. And in this video, we will discuss all that you need to know regarding this topic, women's reservation, inclusiveness when it comes to judiciary. Because let's not forget, if tomorrow an NCERT book publishes a chapter which claims that there is no gender justice in judiciary, there is no gender diversity in judiciary, will the Supreme Court again ban that NCERT book? And for that reason, we need to discuss it. And before discussing it, let me introduce UCSC Plus, India's biggest scholarship test for UPSC Civil Services examination. This mega test will be conducted in 2 slots on 11th of April, 11 a.m., 5 p.m. But this test will be conducted in 2 stages. In stage 1, whoever wishes to participate, whoever wishes to compete can register for free. The registration link is provided in the video description. And the top 500 performers will receive Amazon gift coupons, vouchers. But that's not it. In the second stage, top 32 performers in the scholarship test would be called to either Delhi or Bengaluru or any other city. All the charges, all the expenses will be borne by Unacademy. And there, these 32 students will be divided into 16 teams of 2 students each. And whoever wins this quiz will get a 5 lakh cash prize. Runners up will also get the cash prize. And those who participate in the scholarship test will win scholarship worth 40 crore rupees to prepare for the civil services examination. Use the link provided in the video description, enroll for free and participate in this scholarship test. Let's continue. The year was 1924 when Cornelia Sorabji, she became the first woman lawyer in India. And since then, women have also donned the hat of the judges. They have become judges of the Supreme Court, judges of the High Court, judges at the district court level as well. But we see in higher judiciary, and when we say higher judiciary, that means high courts and the Supreme Court, there is inequality. Inequality in the sense, only 14.27% of all high court judgeships, women hold them. That means there are 764 judges in the Supreme Court, in the high courts, and only 109 are women. Inequality. 8 high courts have only 1 woman judge. 3 high courts, whether it is Uttarakhand, Meghalaya, Tripura, they have no women judges at all. Allahabad High Court has 3 women judges out of 79, which means a mere 2% representation. Women are appointed much later as well. If we compare men and women, men are appointed when they are roughly 51 years of age and women at the age of 53, which means it is impacting their seniority. When you are appointed at a later age, there are less chances of you approaching the job of the Chief Justice of India. That is why we haven't had any woman Chief Justice of India. No High Court in India currently has a woman Chief Justice. Now listen to me carefully. There was a time in 1984, Justice Chandrachud was the Chief Justice of India. At that time, there was no such thing as the collegium system. But the government, if it had to appoint a judge to a High Court or Supreme Court, the Chief Justice of India was always consulted. A woman judge was to be recruited, was to be appointed, a woman advocate, Miss Sunanda Bhandare. She was recommended by the government that we will appoint her to the Delhi High Court as a judge of the Delhi High Court. Who was the Chief Justice? Justice Chandrachud. He was to be consulted. He said, no, let's not appoint her. Why? Because she is too young. What was her age? 42. So, age of 42 for a woman is considered too young an age. So that is why she should not be appointed. Ironically, when Justice Chandrachud was appointed as the judge of the Bombay High Court, he was only 40. So 40 for a male is okay. But 42 for a female? No, you are too young to be appointed as the judge of the High Court. And that is the problem with our judiciary. And look at the Supreme Court. Currently, we have only 1 woman judge, Justice Nagaratna. Out of 34 judges, just 1 judge. No woman has been appointed to the Supreme Court since 2021. Despite the fact that since then, 28 new appointments have been made. Only 1 woman has ever been directly elevated from the bar to the Supreme Court. And what about men? 9. Which means, who is appointed to the Supreme Court? Normally, the judges of the high courts, they are promoted to the Supreme Court. But sometimes, there are candidates directly recruited, appointed from the bar. Out of them, 9 have been men, only 1 has been woman, Justice Indu Malhotra. Justice Indu Malhotra, she dissented in the Sabarimala case. So this is the Supreme Court's representation. What are the barriers? Common justifications that we are given is that we have paucity of candidates. We lack women candidates whom we could have appointed to the High Courts or the Supreme Court. And even of all those advocates who are women, they don't show interest. But all these arguments are superficial. Because the problem is we have to break this glass ceiling. This is considered still a man's bastion, and women are not allowed entry inside this bastion of a man. When there are entry barriers, obviously there will be less representation of women. So these are systemic issues. On top of that, women, they face greater scrutiny than men when it comes to judgeships. They are held to higher standards. For example, will you be able to take care of the court as well as your home? Can you manage both? Can you juggle both? Such questions are not asked to men. And then there is this collegium system, which is so opaque that we don't know who is appointed and for what reason. What are the qualifications? What are the parameters? What is the criteria on the basis of which this judge has been elevated to the Supreme Court? Now, whether you are the son, daughter, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, cousin, relative of this particular judge, that is why you have been elevated to the Supreme Court or High Courts, that's a separate matter. There is nepotism in judiciary as well, and it's an open secret. But the problem is, what criteria, what parameters are kept in mind by the collegium while recommending candidates to the High Courts and the Supreme Court? We don't know. So clearly, when we don't know, it is disadvantageous for women. But not just that. We need to transform the system. Why? Courts must be gender equal, because you have to reflect the population. If 50% of our population is made up of women, the second sex, there should be equal representation in the judiciary as well. After all, judiciary gives verdicts, rulings, orders which impact women as well. Gender equality should not become an exception. It should be the norm. In 2021, when Justice Ramana was the Chief Justice of India, in one go, 3 women were appointed, recruited, recommended for the Supreme Court as judges. It was celebrated. Otherwise, it should have been viewed as a normal exercise. Why should we celebrate the appointment of 3 women as the judges of the Supreme Court? This should be norm. But we celebrated it because it was an exception. After that, since 2021, none of the women have been appointed as the judges of the Supreme Court. These are the barriers, and that is the need for some proposals. What are these proposed steps? Number 1, ensure that this collegium system functions transparently. You define who is eligible and what is the criteria. How do you quantify merit? Do you look at the constitutional philosophy of a candidate? Do you look at the quality and the number of judgments given by this particular judge? That is why you are elevating him or her to the Supreme Court. Do you look at the quality of the cases handled by this lawyer, advocate? That is why you are recruiting, appointing him to Supreme Court or High Court. What is that objective criteria? Make it known. And you should also allow applications. Let women lawyers apply for the post of the judge of the Supreme Court and High Courts. Evaluate them on the basis of merit. So these are the reforms suggested in collegium system. Then, at least 1/3 of the judges in High Courts and Supreme Court should be women. If we are talking about 1/3, 33% reservation for women in Lok Sabha and state legislature assemblies, there should be a mandatory 33% reservation in judiciary as well. Merit and diversity, they go together. When the composition of the judiciary is diverse, reflecting people from different castes, different religions, different regions, different languages, different gender. And let's not forget, we should also be talking about transgenders elevated to the post of the judges in the Supreme Court and High Court. After all, the society has to reflect in the composition of the judiciary as well. And we need a cultural shift. That's what I was telling you previously. We should not celebrate the appointment of judges to the High Courts and the Supreme Court. We celebrate something which is rare. We should make it as normal as possible, so that we don't have to celebrate it. We have to treat it as if it is just another exercise. And that cultural shift is required. Now listen to me carefully. Collegium system of judicial appointments, which started because of the second judge's case, then reiterated by the third judge's case, then further reiterated by the fourth judge's case. We have something called Memorandum of Procedure, which guides the appointment of judges. although there has been a lot of talks about how do we update this memorandum of procedure. It has to be acceptable both to judiciary as well as the executive. But be that as it may, one criteria that we can discern from how the judicial appointments are taking place, we always see merit, seniority, as well as region. Regions are given importance. For example, somebody from Calcutta High Court was elevated to the Supreme Court. And do you know why? Because the collegium justified it on the grounds saying that the last time we have had a judge from Calcutta High Court who became the Chief Justice of India was Justice Altamas Kabir. Since then, we haven't had a judge from the Calcutta High Court who has gone on to become the Chief Justice of India. So for that reason, we need to elevate somebody from the Calcutta High Court, which means you are considering regional representation as a criteria for elevation. Why don't you consider gender also as a criteria? Shouldn't you also be talking about the representation of the fairer sex? Now the question on your mind, sir, justice is blind. If justice is blind, what's the big deal? If it is also gender blind, how does it matter if the judge is a male or a female? How does it matter? Look at India's top performing high courts. Telangana, Sikkim, Manipur. These are also the most gender representative ones, according to a study by Center for Law and Policy Research. In Telangana, out of 30 judges, 10 are women. If you count the number of women in lower judiciary, then Telangana is the most gender sensitive and gender diverse judicial setup. 50% female representation in Telangana. And the best performing high courts, Telangana, Sikkim and Manipur. So gender diversity may also lead to better administration of justice. Now, representation matters. Not because women are progressive and feminist and men are not. In fact, it can be that a male judge is more progressive and feminist as compared to a fellow woman judge. But that's not the case. The case is, it matters because judges from diverse backgrounds can apply their lived experiences to cases. Imagine it this way. Just listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully and ask this question to yourself. You're a judge, but you're a male. There is a petition which is filed before you. A woman is claiming that she's being stalked by a man. She goes out for tuitions or for work, and there are men who follow her. Right? This man does not talk to this woman, just follows her. If you're a man, you will say, what's the big deal? He's not talking to you. He's not throwing acid, God forbid, if you believe in God. He's not trying and making any advances, so why should you bother? Just ignore. But if there was a woman judge on this bench, she will understand that the stalking is psychological. This is a horrible experience that you can have. So when you have women judges on the bench, they will look at this issue from a different perspective, which men cannot. And that is why we need gender diversity. For example, Shaira Bano case, where the Supreme Court had to decide, a 5-judge constitution bench of the Supreme Court had to decide whether instant triple talaq is constitutional or unconstitutional. Should it be allowed to continue or should it be discarded into the dustbins of the history? There were 5 judges on this bench. There was a Sikh Chief Justice of India. There was a Muslim judge. There was a Christian judge. There was a Hindu judge. There was a Parsi judge, Justice Rohinton Fali Nariman. Justice UU Lalit was a Hindu judge. Justice Kehar was the Sikh Chief Justice of India. And there were other judges. But there was no woman judge on this bench. So a case involving gender sensitivity, involving gender justice, there was no woman on the bench. Why? Because there was no woman judge in the Supreme Court itself. That's why we need diversity in India's judicial system. According to one author, Ms. Namita Bandare, these are her lines, not mine, so don't hold me accountable. She says that India and Indian judicial system, particularly the Supreme Court, is male dominant, dominant caste dominant, upper class dominant, majority religion dominant. And this particular Supreme Court is adjudicating important cases involving gender justice, whether polygamy is legal or not, whether marital rape should be a crime or not. And it is better if the judges of the Supreme Court are also women, so that we can have a different look at these cases involving gender justice. But be that as it may, there are some who advocate that we need to force the system to change. It should not be done at the whims and the fancies of the collegium. They will decide whether more women should be appointed or not. We need an institutional mechanism, a policy, maybe a law to mandate women's reservation in the judiciary. Why? Because men, they do not share power naturally. You have to snatch power from them. One of the most fantastic Supreme Court judges in the US Supreme Court, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was asked, she gave a famous reply, and she was asked, when would there be enough women judges in the Supreme Court of United States? Because that's the question that is often asked. Why 33%? Why not 50? Why not 75? When do you think you would be satisfied if there would be 2 judges who are women, 5 judges, 10 judges? When are you going to be satisfied? Justice Ginsburg said, when there are 9. And how many judges are there in the US Supreme Court? 9. In India, how many judges are there? Chief Justice of India and 33 other judges, which means 34. So maybe the question here, if somebody is asking you, when would it be enough? When would there be enough judges on the Supreme Court of India? Maybe it is time for women to echo and ask for all of 34. All the 34 judges should be women. What is your take on this matter? Should there be reservation for women in the Supreme Court and High Courts? How do we enhance the gender representation in India's judiciary? Do let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching.